Good morning. Good morning. Today I'm going to continue our series, Portraits of the Past, and our message today is entitled One Big Unhappy Family. We're going to continue the story of Jacob. Last video we talked about how Jacob married two women. He wanted to marry Rachel, but he ended up marrying Rachel's older sister, Leah, in addition to Rachel. And this was because their father tricked Jacob and brought Leah into the bridal chamber the night of the wedding when he thought he was going to marry Rachel. And he did that because his excuse was in their time, in their day, their custom was to marry the older daughter first before the younger daughter. And so Jacob ended up having two wives at the end of that story in the last video. Now, as a mother myself, one of the things that I like to do is I like to watch some of the reels on Facebook, some of the reels that have these large families. And I just wrote a few things down here this morning that I'd like to tell you. I like to watch those reels, and my favorite ones, like I said, are of those large families. And as God would have it, I got involved in ministry, and I decided to only have 3 children. I always wanted to have a great big family, but as I got my life got busy, and as I realized how much work each and every child became, I decided that God only wanted me to have 3, or he would have gave me more. So, with some people with their busy lives, they only have 1 or 2 children, but some other people have many, many, many children. And I like the way sometimes that they film themselves in these reels. Sometimes they'll walk one by one in front of the camera. Sometimes they do a dance. Sometimes I saw one video had the kids piling out of the van, and she counted them 1, 2, 3, 4, up to like 10 or 12. I'm not sure. But anyway, then my favorite one was when they lined up all the children and they told each child to come forward to the camera and say the nickname that their father gave them. And there was about 10 or 12 of them. And there was only one girl in the whole lot. And when she came forward, she said her nickname was Sister. I thought that was absolutely adorable. So today's passage has Leah and Rachel competing with each other to see who will have the most children. Now, if you recall from the last video, just like I told you, Jacob's brother Laban gives both of his daughters to Jacob in marriage. So he ends up with 2 wives. First he marries Leah, and then he marries Rachel. He had to work 7 years for each of them. Even though he didn't want to be married to Leah, he ended up working 7 years, and that's the wife that he was given. So now Jacob has 2 wives. This is not condoned by God, by the way. It's an accepted custom in the time and place of Laban. This is where we pick up with today's Bible passage. I'm going to start in Genesis. And like I said, Leah and Rachel get into a competition to see who could give Jacob more sons. A few things before we begin. I want, especially if you are a woman watching this video, I especially want you to know these things. A few things before we could begin. It was the custom of the day to bear as many children as possible. That was the custom then, in that time. That doesn't mean it's the custom now, in this time. This was because women had no other role in society. And so this role became very important to the women. And that is not so today. Women could decide how many children they would like to have with their husband. They can decide to have none. They could decide to adopt. They could, if they have health issues, or they could even foster other people's children. So number 2, because bearing children was so important in ancient times, being barren or unable to bear children was considered a curse. And that is not true. That is absolutely not true. You are not cursed by God if you're not able to conceive. Any more than someone with any other medical issue is cursed by God. Okay? And number 3, children served a different purpose in Bible times. The husband wanted an heir for his earthly goods, and he wanted it to be a son. This was the custom. And children were also trained to do the work of the family business, whether it be farming, shepherding, vineyards, orchards, whatever it is. In this type of agricultural society where there was hardly any other jobs to do, many children saved the cost of hiring workers. And now today, while this is still true among a small segment of society, it is not true overall in society. So this story is a custom from back in Bible times. It is not what women must do today. And our story begins. Verse 31, when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive, but Rachel remained childless. Now, Rachel was the favored wife, and she was the one who couldn't conceive. Now, there was a reason for all of this. And just like if you are out there and you are listening to this video and you can't conceive a child, God has a perfect plan for your life. I just want you to know that. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, it is because the Lord has seen my misery. And Reuben sounds like a Hebrew word for he has seen my misery. Names were intentionally given for their meaning and were sometimes prophetic, meaning that told of a future event. Okay? So this is why they're naming them specific names. Reuben means see a son. See, I have given birth to a son. In verse 33, it says, Leah has another son, and she said, because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too, and she named him Simeon. So you can see how sad Leah is as she bears each child, and she knows Jacob doesn't love her, but she is having his children. Verse 34, Leah had another son, and she said, now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. So he was named Levi, and Levi sounds like the Hebrew word for attached. Leah's 4th son she named Judah, because Leah said, this time I will give praise to the Lord, and Judah sounds like the Hebrew word for praise. Then Leah stopped having children. She had 4 sons. Now Rachel became jealous of her sister, and she said to her husband Jacob, give me children or I will die. She is distraught because she is watching her sister, who is married to her husband, have all these children from him, and she is childless. Jacob becomes angry with her and says, am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children? Now God has a very, very special plan for Rachel. I just want you to know that. Don't be discouraged by this story. There could have been several medical reasons why Rachel wasn't conceiving, and Jacob in his frustration blames God. We often do that in our lives. We blame God for things that are happening, and God has a very special plan that he wants to come out of our circumstances if we just hang on and be patient just a little longer. So Rachel offers her servant to Jacob to have children, and her servant Bilhah has Dan and Naphtali. And Leah gives her servant to Jacob to have more children, and her servant Zilpah has Gad and Asher. Then Leah starts having more children, and she names them Issachar, Zebulun, and then she has a daughter named Dinah. So Leah has 6 sons and 1 daughter named Dinah, and then God remembers Rachel. Did God forget Rachel? No, God didn't forget Rachel. God just remembered the right time that Rachel was supposed to have her child. And this is the right time, right here in this part of scripture. Rachel had a son, and she named him Joseph, because she said, God has taken away my disgrace, because Joseph means, may he add. Meaning, Rachel said, may the Lord, may he add to me another son. Now, you're going to have to hang in there and listen to the next videos to find out what happens to Rachel if she has another son or not, and what happens with Jacob and all of these children. This is the whole point of the story. Jacob has to build a nation, right? He has a prophecy from God that a nation will come from him. And so he has all of these children. At this point, he has 11 sons and 1 daughter. And you're going to have to hang in there to hear the rest of the story. I just have one little note that I want to say at the end here. These women have fallen into the deep valley of comparison, which you can never be happy in. You are always gauging what God has given you against what God has given someone else. You can never be happy doing that. So what I want you to do, if you think that you have found yourself in this predicament, I want you to climb out of that valley with the ladder of gratitude. That's right, gratitude. I want you to be grateful for what God has given you, the special talents and gifts that you have, and the special ministries and jobs that God has given you to do. And that is how that you climb out of this valley of comparison, that with the ladder of gratitude. And that is what I pray that you do today. I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.